I'm Mr. James,
I'm Mr. Ritchie.
and we are the
The
educators. Oh wow, season 3 still, episode 15. 15 episodes in this season. Oh, it's December 3rd. It's Thursday. I just had pizza. I mean, not that anybody out there should care. It's just the rest of the whole world is a mess, or at least Maine is an absolute mess.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy up here in our little
Ugh.
neck of the woods. So the numbers are interesting. So we usually do the weekly increase. Now the weekly increase for Maine, the numbers actually show it going down this week, which
Hmm.
is interesting. However, today was also the biggest rise ever. So I think that kind of makes up for the difference there. But this week, 1,100 new cases. Last week was about 1,400 new cases. In the United States, kind of went down a little bit too. Last week it was 1,100,000 new cases, and this week it's 968,000 new cases. So a little bit down, but it's kind of like just a correction in the stats, really, because
Yeah.
it's going up sharply. The trend is going up, and in the world shows an increase. Last week was 3,953,000. This week, 3,985,000 new cases. So still very much in the middle of a pandemic right now.
Yeah, it's always gonna be. It's always gonna be. Yeah, and I mean, today was 346. I found that out at like 5:30. I was like, what? And yeah, as teachers, we're just kind of like, what's going on? This is precisely why this episode is about. We're kind of just waiting to see what happens. And it just seems because of that unknown, everyone's kind of like, I'm not going to put all my effort into everything. I'm not going to go the extra yard, mile, or whatever to put my effort into my teaching or whatever. Not that we're not doing that. We're just noticing a lot of, since we see quite a bit of teachers and different classrooms, you kind of see it in the way people walk, the way they're just conducting themselves, maybe the way they have a little bit of exchange with you. It just seems there's like an overall fatigue and stuff. We'll be talking about that later. And yeah, what a mess.
But
I don't know.
around us, so in our county too, where we work, is like the highest around in the state. So it's like we are in the epicenter of the state. But however, I think we are like the lowest on the graph of all the states. I think that we are the lowest in like total
Yeah.
cases or something like that. Like we've done good, but like that's because we are smart about it and trying to make up for, or at least watch all the other mistakes happening around us in other states, trying not to do that. So yeah, we're doing okay, but still it's not awesome, especially being right in the epicenter of where it's bad in the state. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Working in a school with 600 children and 100 more adults or so, So yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a domino, and you're waiting in line, and the dominoes have already been hit, and you're like, maybe if I push back when it comes to hit me, I won't fall over.
Yep.
But it's coming, and someone's hit dominoes on the other side too, so they're coming from whatever side. You never know, and because either way, either not that we couldn't get it, but even if we didn't get it, but we were exposed to somebody in our room, even the slightest chance, whatever, we still have to be quarantined and we're out. And
Yep.
that's
We've
going to
been
be
we've
something.
been lucky. We've been lucky. The other two teachers in our wing, both of them have had a stint or two in quarantine, and so it's certainly right around us. So there's a lot of newer, like really closer cases, like, oh, this person I know's wife, this person
Yeah.
I know's like cousin or something like that. Like it's getting, I know a few people that have gotten it personally, but like there's an amount of suddenly more people with a direct connection. And I think unfortunately, that direct connection does help to sway some people to be like, okay, well, this is real. I know my own mother had reported that there was so her brother-in-law's cousin is his wife is in an ICU right now under an induced coma, and so like because she personally knows that person, as you know, grown up with them for her entire adult life, that struck home for her, and you know she's using that with her other sisters, trying to get them to sort of realize that this is a real thing, because for some reason there is still a population that just thinks that this is a big scam.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's strange to sort of sit on the sidelines and watch that happen, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like yesterday there were more people that passed away from COVID-19 than everyone that passed away on 9/11 from the terror attacks.
Yeah, it's...
And like, you know, unfortunately, that is a little soundbite that works. It sinks in because it's, for people our age especially, it's something that's, you know, front and center in our nation's history. So
in the Spanish flu, they compared to World War One, didn't they? I believe they compared that to deaths in World War One. I believe that trumped that.
Yeah, let's see. I actually don't remember.
And I don't know if World War II, the fatalities of World War II trumped that.
So I don't think that we've, you know, I think World War II was, death was measured in the millions. Let's see.
Yeah.
So 1918 influenza pandemic was 500 million people, or 1/3 of the world's population, became infected.
Wow.
Number of deaths were estimated to be at least 50 million worldwide, with 675,000 occurring in the United States. So we're at 275. We are certainly trucking on the way, except that I guaranteed it would be up over 675,000 deaths if it wasn't for some simple basic stuff that we've learned from that pandemic, like some things like the masks worked. They figured it out too late, I think. Way too many people were sick before they implemented the mask mandates and things. But like, yeah, so like if it wasn't for science and logic and reason, we would definitely be in a Spanish flu 1918 pandemic situation.
What a mess. And that's a great segue to science in the news. And science in the news, we've got a couple different things. Actually, some things that I definitely want you to touch upon because I think they're your specialty. But the first two have to do with COVID-19, right? You know, there's somebody I heard on the news that in Italy, their restaurant, she's going to fine people or kick them out if they talk about COVID-19. She's put a sign up that says you're not allowed to talk about it. She got so tired of people. A woman in Italy who owns a restaurant mentioned that. It's another one of those NPR things. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. We don't want to talk about it anymore. But the UK is the first country, they said, to authorize a fully tested COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's very interesting. And I know that that's a sting to what is it called, like Project Warp Speed or something. Operation Warp Speed. Like that's definitely a sting with the billions of taxpayer dollars that our children will pay back. We were still not first with a vaccine, but
we get to see what happens
still
there.
Good news. It's still, you know, competition can be a good thing, and in this case, you know, they've authorized a fully tested COVID-19 vaccine. And I think in our combined experience, you and I usually find that European standards on like food and like medicine and things in general are usually a little bit more stringent, a little bit more thought out, a little bit more methodical and scientific. And so I'm sold as of right now. My opinion can change with future information. That's the root of science.
Well, it's kind of like in the UK, you're like, there's a list of items that Americans have in their food that they would never have whatsoever. And they're like, why are you doing that? That's not good for you. And they're like, what? We didn't know that. There was just, it's an additive to food. No, it's not good to have that at all. And they're like, oh, wow. So if, you know, the few supplements that I use, because I exercise every single day, and it gives my energy up, are from the UK. It's just one
Yeah.
of came about. It was like, okay, great, and they have all this testing for heavy metals and all this stuff. You're going to get some sort of concentrated thing. You want to make sure it doesn't have concentrated versions of toxins that your body doesn't need, and it's just a natural thing to happen in Europe. It's just
Yeah.
here. It's just one of those things like, who cares? It's got more protein in it. We're
Yeah.
not going to test it. It's got more protein. We put the numbers in the back. Do you read the back? Like,
Nobody that
yeah,
we know's died, so
yeah, I know, yeah,
let's ship it.
yeah. I'm not going to test. We're not going to trust that. It's about making sure something's absolutely safe, and if it doesn't add up, then I mean, because they have all these other countries that basically are, to have smaller countries and then be your neighbors, and also be kind of like your science. They're going to read your journals and stuff like that. So they're like your colleague scientists reading your peer reviewing you. You
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure. And there's so many of them. There's so many of these countries in Europe that, we're bordered by. We have two countries, and
Yeah.
it's and honestly, America's always been this sort of thing. Like, we don't want anything to do with Canada or Mexico. We don't want to talk to that. And it's just like, that's not a good idea, to be like that. You should work with your neighbors, you want someone's input to make sure, that's a scientific process, right? You want input.
All of history and science collectively says that diversity is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like that's just what we found, that like even book I'm reading right now, Future Shock, talks about how colleges look for diversity in their selection process specifically. Like they don't want a certain subsect. At least when the book was made, it was a big deal. And then what happened over time, in the book it says, is that now we're diverse in America in certain areas that they don't have to be so selective, but with a broader scope, America, just focused on America, like right now we're kind of witnessing what happens when you don't really follow the guidelines from worldwide perspective. And so I'm pretty sold on the UK vaccine. If they send some test samples over, I'll sign up and do a trial for it.
Yeah, I'll do that. The next item is the last mile for COVID-19 vaccines could be the biggest challenge yet.
Yep.
And we know that some of these vaccines need to be kept at a certain temperature that is pretty frigid. That was the
cold
Pfizer
chain.
Vaccine.
Yeah, so you have to maintain a cold chain from manufacturing of the vaccine, which is scientists literally working in frigid cold conditions, putting this stuff together. And then you have to maintain it like, -70. And to maintain that is a lot of effort. And so from manufacturer to the time like it gets to the doctor that's administering it to you. Now, obviously, they're not going to inject something at -70 directly into your veins. Yeah, it'd be a little shock to the system, but that's what it takes to keep it viable all the way from one place to the next. And so, like, if you take a standard storage container and compare it to the cost of a storage container that can maintain -70 degrees, order of magnitude more expensive. And so now you're talking about millions and millions, billions really of doses, because I believe that these vaccines require a initial and then a booster. And so we're not talking about one dose, we're talking about at least 2 doses in at least what I've heard about these 2 vaccines. One of those vaccines I heard doesn't need the cold storage, it needs like -20 and not -70 or something, I think, which is just in range basically of your average household freezer. And so not that difficult at all. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happened. We just received in the state somewhere between 12 and 13,000 doses of the initial vaccine, or that's what we're going to receive. Basically, that's what allotted for us. and I guess it was 3 times less, or we had asked for 3 times more than that amount, but we did not get it. And so things like that, logistical challenges of, you know, supply and demand. Obviously, we are now at the whims of, you know, pharmaceutical companies that made it, but getting it to people cold, viable, is going to be a really interesting thing to watch. And it's, you know what, if you can come up to a solution to this problem, this might make a whole boatload of money right now. You know, if you're out there like wondering what's the next big thing, well, we know that this is coming. This is a market that we have. Maybe we all need to invest in box trucks that can go to -70 or something. I don't know.
It's just that delivery system that just even delivering the ones that have to be normal refrigeration. It's just getting it out to certain places, and can they hold it? And they even had another computer that worked out at MIT that worked out a better chain to help figure them out how they could do that. So it's literally like, okay, we need to ship these things to these certain places. Let's get this working. And I think whatever they come up with, it's going to be something they can keep, like say, hey, this is the best way to get this out. And hopefully those delivery chains that they set up will be set up indefinitely and only get better, because they realize that this is maybe this pandemic is going to be the first in a string of newer ones that we're going to basically be going through across the place. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's quite a bit. You know, we keep talking about this so much, but it is
it's
our life. It's been our life right forever. Now, yeah. Like a whole year.
It's going to be more than a year. And so this is going to be certainly something more on the scale that, like, I think only happened long ago, because you and I experienced a war in 2002, basically, that started, and it didn't affect our lives. We just lived. Yeah. There was no change in supply and demand. There was nothing. Our parents' taxes went up or something, you know, or like our taxes went up when we got a job or something. But like, it wasn't like a real, you know, it wasn't like World War II where there were butter lines and, you know, like just to get a butter and bread lines and things like that. It's just now we're experiencing something that used to happen all the time. We're not ready for it. And so people are saying like, no, I'm done. I can't do this. But you know what? Until these vaccines make it that last mile and get it arrive at the local Hannaford, you know, for instance, to get our vaccines, until that happens, we're still right in the middle of this.
Yeah. But the new light-based quantum computer that I can't even say, Juice Hang or something like that, has achieved quantum supremacy. Yay.
Quantum computers are incredible.
Amazing. Yes.
Incredible. And even if you look at one, it looks biological. Like if you look at a quantum computer, just Google the image, and you're just going to see tubes and bright, shiny gold and really rare metals. It looks like art. And the quantum world is a crazy place, and you can't even speak of it in normal terms. And that's what's crazy about quantum physics, is that it works. And it's like, all right, well, how do we know that quantum physics? Well, do you use a computer? Do you use a semiconductor? A semiconductor is a switch with no moving parts.
Yeah.
If you can explain how that works, you understand quantum physics. If you understand how a magnet attracts a piece of steel, you understand quantum physics, really. And so using quantum physics to compute is certainly just another realm of reality here. And so it's hard for me to even talk about how this stuff works, because it's really just some of the most rarest materials of superconductors, complex arrays of lasers and like lights. And it's like they measure things in photons, and like it's really just this complicated mess of physics, which is awesome if you like physics. But it gets heavy real
Yeah,
fast.
yeah. They said this thing that called quantum supremacy is the fact that it performed a calculation. They said that's impossible for a conventional computer, and this has been done before by Google's quantum computer,
Yep.
and Google's runs on superconducting materials, and this one runs on photons. And it
Yeah.
said this computer that was made in China could calculate something in 200 seconds that would take more than 500 million years on the world's fastest non-quantum classical computer. They probably take twice that amount of my computer.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that's I mean, I don't even know if we have something that we need to compute. I mean, it could be some, like, I just keep wondering what they're going to say, like, why is 2 plus 2 equal 4? Smoke comes out. Wow. Mercer goes,
Right.
it printed 75 pages of why that is so.
Yeah.
But
But
only it can read.
one of these quantum computers is going to end up being like that the computer in the what is the restaurant at the end of the universe there, where it's
Oh, yeah.
like, what does life and everything mean? And it's like calculating for 1,000 years, 42, and like, what does that mean? It's like, well, the computer's like, yeah, you just got to figure it out. It's like these quantum computers are giving like, what are we gonna find with this amount of
Oh,
information?
yeah.
But what happens when AI gets a hold of a quantum computer and can
Yeah.
calculate something billions of times faster than we could solve it in our, so it's some of the stuff we talk about on here is sounds like science fiction, but this stuff is really happening. And just like the internet, people are often left unaware that this whole subculture of science exists until it just confronts them.
Yeah.
Like, I know so many people that resisted the internet, and they are now the people that are buying into all this crazy information online. That's where they get their news, and they swore they would never own a cell phone. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, wait for quantum computers and everything that just gone.
So the next news item I think is right up your alley if you want to read that.
So this one, the new, oh no, Beetlejuice went dark, but it didn't go supernova. What happened? So we've talked about this on a few episodes, couple
Yep.
episodes, especially when it was happening earlier this year. But one of the newest theories is that that they think that it kind of belched out a bunch of gas and debris that created a cloud that kind of obscured the vision, because they included an image of what it looked like before and after, and it really does kind of look like a circle that just got obstructed in like a corner. And so
Hmm.
that would cause an overall dimming. However, because the entirety of the sphere of the star um, didn't dim overall, it kind of hints towards probably just some dust particles. Um,
I think it's
but
interesting. The size of Beetlejuice is two.
yeah.
Is it 20 times the size of our sun?
Um, well, yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's like it's enormous. Like, it's way bigger than like Earth's orbit, even. Like, if imagine the sun was the size of, I think it's, so yeah, I'm looking here. I think it's even bigger than
Yeah,
Jupiter's
it says about
orbit.
15 to 20 times as massive as the sun.
Hmm. Now, massive means how much it weighs or how dense it is,
Yeah.
but this is actually kind of a not very dense star because it's like a red giant, and so it's fluffed out and would swallow all the way out. Basically, Saturn would be its first planet if it was in our solar system. It's just
Oh, wow.
enormous and it's burning through its fuel a lot faster than our star, because it's like it's on its way out. That's why people was really hoping that this was the signature. This was the explosion, because for a long time we've known that Beetlejuice was towards the end of its life. Like, looking around, we can see stars in different phases of their life. We've noted a stellar life cycle, and all of the calculations point towards this being at the end of its life cycle. However, that life cycle to a star, a million years is nothing to a star. It can just it can figure itself out for a million years, got some more fuel to burn, and then one day suddenly just completely go nova, or supernova in this case. So we're waiting for it. It would be the most incredible thing. And like I mentioned on that other show that we talked about this with,
Yeah.
it would force the average American or average Earthling to look at the sky and go, what the heck is that thing out there? Like, it'd be as bright as the full moon. It'd be like the second brightest thing in the sky other than the full moon, basically. You'd be able to see at night from the light from it, from at least in the beginning. And then all of a sudden it would fade away in some time, and that star is gone.
Wow.
And it's like, now that we've seen that before in history, we've seen stars explode all the way back into like the Middle Ages. There's been records of things like that happening, but in modern times it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And we've got thousands of telescopes pointed up to stars now, and of course we're just dying for one of these things to happen, but hasn't happened yet. But we're still going to keep an eye on it.
And the last news item is not a news item at all. It's just, I'm just saying that the stupid Monolith thing that everyone's talking about that's moving from Arizona to California is on a national tour of conspiracy.
Wait a minute. So I heard about the monument. I heard it went missing.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything new about it.
Now it's showed up in California, I think.
Somebody went out, found it.
Or that, or another one, or they moved it. Who knows? It looks like a tool chest on its side. It's
an art piece.
Yeah.
It's an art piece that someone went through a lot of difficulty on purpose. Like, that's the purpose of these art pieces, is to make people go, how the heck did this thing happen? Like, there's people that climb really tall mountains and set up like a little shack with a typewriter in it. Yeah. And like let people that climb the mountain leave notes, like these crazy
performance
projects.
Art, basically.
Performance art. Yeah. Like, because when you look at the art, you go, somebody really invested a lot of time and effort and made this happen. And it's like, that Monolith thing was definitely one of the greatest, because it's just sort of like, could have been there for 20 years. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And it was done really well. And who knows, right? Like, what if that's not even the real Monolith being brought on tour, like, or whatever? Like, it's just so.
Yeah, I have no other wrote tour and stuff like that, because I just thought it's gonna be everywhere. It's gonna show up on your doorstep. This giant metal thing. You're like, yeah, great. Hey, I can stick magnets to it, so I know it's metal. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, well, I know. I think if it's stainless, the magnets won't stick.
Oh yeah. We'll see if they had that much money for stainless, but
yeah, I know, right? It looks shiny. I don't know what it was, but like, it's just crazy. And I know people were like coming up with some conspiracy theories about it, and it's like, come on, guys, like, what's more realistic? That other people realize that this is a beautiful part of the country and they want some performance art out here, or or that this is some like Monolith thing, like straight out of like some science fiction movies. Like, it's literally out of some science fiction movies. So can we really believe that? Come on.
Yeah. Well, let's transition to what I think this, and every week we name these shows, and I keep wondering what to name this. I thought of this episode being called Waiting for the Remote Call.
Yeah.
Because we told you the stats, and just today alone, 346. We'd never had an increase like that. I mean, 256 or whatever was the height, and we're like, whoa, we're never going to get that high again. And this thing beat it. So
well, we never had a day over 100 cases in Maine.
Yeah.
Until November, and now 250 a day is like, all right, that's normal now.
Yeah.
That's what our new normal is right now, current normal.
So we feel like we're just kind of sitting and waiting. I mean, both of us are busy. We're gonna be putting grades in this weekend. We want student engagement. We want to help everybody out. We're in this, I think we're in this phase now where, like, hey, we've had so many weeks to get things to work. Things are going smoothly. We're in this stride. And we know this is going to happen, and we're so in depth with what we're doing that it's kind of like to have to turn this into remote now is going to be a bit of a struggle, but we do want to survive
Yeah.
and
And we
we
want,
want
you
everyone to
know,
be
and we want to
safe.
do what's right for, other people too, because
Yeah.
I mean, in our age, our health or whatever, if we get it, we're more than likely to get through it. But it's just like, affecting our friends, family, stuff like that. And you never know, you could be the one. That's the way that this disease works. So, but yeah, so like we are now in the second trimester. So in our school, it's broken up into trimesters. And in the first trimester, I just sort of was like pretending that we weren't going to go online because I ultimately felt no matter what, if I went to remote only, I could easily step into that with my what I had going on, because we have to plan for all remote kids anyways.
Yeah.
So we just take that, copy, paste, that. Um, so I've been running through this just like, but every week I show up on a Monday and I'm just sort of like, all right, start this up next week. Every Friday I'm like, wow, we made it through that week. All right,
Yeah.
let's see what the next one, and it's like constantly, and I'm like, okay, like we know that we're going remote sometime.
Yeah.
It's like now it's sort of like this elephant in the room that's just sort of gonna suddenly like just snap and start freaking out, and it's like, when is this thing gonna happen? Like, what is going on? And now that I have to suddenly change and shift my entire curriculum for Monday, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put so much effort, just like I felt in the first week or two.
Yeah.
The first week or two when I was building my curriculum, I am putting so much effort into this hybrid model. Like, sure, I can copy and paste from my remote, but is it as good as my hybrid stuff? No, you cannot recreate the goodness. But like, especially for me, because I'm material heavy.
Yeah.
But here it is, and I now have to plan as if we're just going to continue going hybrid throughout this trimester. So I was hoping that we would be remote by now so that I could just plan for remote for this trimester. So now I
Yeah.
have a lot more work on my plate. Um, you know, it's just the way it goes. None of us thought we'd make it this far, but here we are.
I don't
But
know. I do
we
think
made it this
that
far.
we've seen, teachers kind of losing, it seems losing interest and just how their mannerisms are, or, I get, we both get classes delivered to us, as UA teachers that sometimes have 4 to 6 students in it at times. And I feel for those teachers that are like, hey, I like a full class. I'm used to having a lot of, things going around and moving a lot of people, and to have 4 to 6 students, there's
Yeah,
this like lack of an audience
yeah,
and this motivation of like, wow, we got through that really fast, and I planned for that tiny little thing to last such a long time, and for it to go through so fast. And I'm finding that I'm doing the same lessons with, between, you know 2 grades or something like that, and I'll find that just a lack of students in one class, I'll be like, wow, okay, let's go to the next thing. And I always
yep,
over plan, and I have enough things. It's just I feel like could get more out of an activity with
yep.
certain classes than I could with others.
So
And then some that haven't been there, it's just kind of like you have to compile things together. And
we've experienced some pretty good, like with the small class sizes, we're able to get through material. We're able in person to get through some pretty good stuff, because the students are doing all around fine with social emotional learning.
hmm,
Like their social emotional well-being seems to be pretty good. For the majority overall, um, most of the kids, um, their affect is that they're just there to do what they're supposed to do. But we are struggling with online participation with our hybrid students. So hybrid
oh
meaning,
yeah,
our students are in for 2 days a week and they learn remotely for 2 days a week, on the computer. And so we try our best to mimic our in-person learning with these remote learning students. And what would you say, like 2 to 5 students on average reply to a given
Yeah.
assignment.
And that's
And
out of like
so,
the full class.
yeah.
So
And so we have 7 classes, 7 or 8 classes, depending on our rotation. And each one of those classes is usually 17 to 20 or more students.
yeah.
And out of each of those classes of 17 to 20 students, 2 to 5 is the average response rate that we're getting on a given assignment. So while, we're doing okay in person, the kids seem like normal, but the half that they're not in person, they really seem disconnected and just absolute fatigue and loss of interest.
And it feels, the other thing is, I mean, we get a lot of recorded videos or audio, and I hear parents talking and asking their child to answer a question I might have asked or something. And
Yeah.
I like that. And I feel a lot of parents aren't putting the effort into this with their children, and we don't even know what their predicament might be. Maybe they are going through, somebody has COVID-19 and everyone's thinking about it. Oh, it's a death wish. And everyone's afraid. And you just, if they're young enough, it's just that I mean, we have really young kids. That's the thing. And so it puts in their head that this thought of like the life and death, the so-called, I mentioned before, probably in Mexico, the 3 deaths, and the first one being that recognizing that you're someday going to die is the first death. And I just feel like putting that in the head of a student, a child, is just, it's horrible. And maybe that's the contributing to it. Maybe it is, they need this SEL thing. We haven't had homework before in the past. And to have that now, it's just, even though, we're both trying to make things as exciting as possible. We want things to be exciting. We just want to be an extension of class. Like you were in class. Here's everything I couldn't tell you, or everything I did tell you. Slow down, and you can pause it and rewind and play back slowly. Make it so much better for you.
Yeah, it's like, I've been explaining to the kids that unfortunately, this is what the best of the school year looks like. This is it.
Yeah.
This is, at best, this being here 2 days a week is what you've got. Doing online work is part of it. You've got to do it. It's part of what it is this year. I'm sorry that this is what it is. None of your teachers want it this way, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to look around the world. You've got to analyze the situation and commit to living with it and move forward. And there's certain times in life where that's just mandatory. And this is one of those situations. Like, you've got to do your best through this situation, because you don't want to lose 2 years of learning, in your short life.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, and that's the thing is, we have to keep our game face on. And I don't have a hard problem with that. I get completely involved in what I'm doing, and you're thrilled that they like the class, and then it's shortened, but it's like, okay, and then they leave, and you're like, I can't wait to see them tomorrow. And then you realize, I'm not going to see them for 3 months. I'm going to start over again with another cohort, another trimester, another rotation. I have so many calendars telling me what's going on and things. And then it's that, okay, I got to start working towards getting this thing right. And it's going to be a number of new things that I'm going to be doing, but also what have they've gone through in these past 13, we're going on 13 weeks. It's, And so I don't know. I feel like the remote thing is going to be kind of a shock, kind of not, because we already have this hybrid of being half remote.
Yeah.
But I don't know what our synchronous capabilities are going to be once we go remote.
Or is it going to be Zoom, so we're synchronous, where we're working at the same time as the kids, or is it going to be all remote, like
all us posting things and them to access it, and we're basically kind of like I do right now with me teaching at another school. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get them to anything. Just please respond to me. I'll buy you things. That was literally one of my posts. Please, I'll buy you something. What do you need? And I listed the 5 biggest things that they could use for some sort of instrument that may be playing. And I still had those that didn't respond. And I'm like, would you need anything? They're like, no, I don't need anything. I go, no, you need something. And so, you know what? I guessed, and I'm going to send them something anyways, but at least they returned my message. They didn't return the message through the Google Classroom. They returned the message when I privately emailed them, like kind of like, hey, leave me alone. No, don't leave me alone. You're part of my class.
Right. So when we go remote, is this what we're looking at here? Like when we go remote, because we're just waiting on that remote call.
Yeah.
When we go remote, are we just looking towards like what we experienced in the spring, which was 4 kids in a class on a Zoom call, no one returning our emails, and putting effort into videos and projects.
Tons of pajamas.
Yeah.
Tons of picking up your cat, showing me.
Yeah, lots of pets. Yeah, exactly what I was gonna say.
But I mean, and it's kind of like the maturity we need right now. It takes a while to develop that, and I feel we're not going to get that maturity anytime soon from the students that we have. It's just to realize the situation and realize, wow, I gotta be motivated and discipline myself to do this. And no one's just dedicated to that. I mean, we have students that are great at doing things, and we're hoping that out of what we're assigning, they're getting some sort of emotional uplifting, something positive that we can be in their life. And we want to put that out, but we don't know. And
that's obviously because you and I are specials, UA teachers or itinerants, whatever you want to call it. And so we're in this blip in this student's life. And so we try with performance and art and, our technology prowess and all that stuff, but we're trying to make that 30 minutes that we get them, or less if it's online, impactful. And it's an extra skill, it's an extra burden for UA teachers, I think.
And it's one of those things you love to get them to that height. So when they leave, they're thinking about that and they love that. But then if you're not going to see them for 3 months and then you see them again and you're like, hi, does anyone remember me?
And 3 months for an elementary student is like 3 years for a 40-year-old. So like, what was it? It was from March to the beginning of school. So late August, September.
Yeah.
First day, students walking by, hey, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that long ago I saw you. And to them, it's like, oh my God, you're still alive? Like,
yeah. And that's the other thing. I mean, aside from the fact that we want to progress from where we last saw students and we want to move into a certain direction, it's going to be a little step back and then see how forward we can get. Because honestly, this year, our expectations, our participation, we have standards, but we're supposedly not grading on them, even though I'm aligning everything I do with the standards. And I find that I'm doing things in a great way that support that. It's just with the shortened class time, it's kind of like go with the biggest bang for your buck, right? If there's a certain instrument I can do that I can use and it can get everything out, I'm going to use that instrument. Is if there's a certain activity I've got with movement, boom, I'm going to add that in. And there's so many avenues I can go down. There's so many things I did in the past that I can't do anymore. And I'm like, I have to rethink that. I can't do group activities. I can't do anything with singing. Can't do any. So there's a lot of things that just had to change. And online, completely virtual, I can sing. You can see my mouth. Sometimes I look at myself on the screen, which I'm looking at right now, and I'm like, that's what my mouth looks like. That's weird. And I did this weird shaving thing, kind of like someone calls me, I shaved in the middle here. So I'm like,
I can't even tell that during the day.
Wolverine. I've got this Wolverine sort of like shaving
thing. You got the Wolverine. See, I always see you with a mask on now. So,
But that's the thing. I don't see my mouth. And
Yep.
I saw the other day a
It looks like
student
it's
just,
in the outline of where your mask sits.
yeah, a student was fixing their mask, and I saw their mouth, and it was really weird to see someone's mouth. I was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
that's just a child's mouth." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? Wow, it's
Put that
so
back up.
weird."
Put that back over your nose. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm in the classroom, I have my mask on. Even if I'm recording something for the students, I have my mask on. Even if no one's in my room, I have my mask on. And yet, if I'm here, I'm recording something, they can see my mouth.
Well, it's interesting that you do that. Yeah. Just to
Yeah,
show them.
it's just one of those things that it's just natural for me to do that, and I make so many different videos. But
Yep.
I really want to keep that effort going, and I'm thinking of new ways to be getting more exciting. I'm thinking almost that we're gonna have to make videos like a YouTube video. And honestly, for those watching this and wonder like, yeah, your YouTube videos aren't that special. Hey, okay, we're learning. I just found some websites and some ideas to make this thing look better. And yeah, and we definitely need some high-end cameras, but it's maybe I got to sell one of those things to get one of those. So if you want a guitar, anybody, yeah. But that's the thing. It's just we want it to be exciting, and we want it to be flashy and nicely done, but have them get information out of that. And certainly, there's so many things they could watch, but our students can't access YouTube. They're never going to find this episode. They're never going to find any of these episodes. And
Right.
even though they're not really geared towards students at an elementary level, or, even like maybe, preteens or teenagers even, I just don't, no one can access YouTube. So whatever.
I don't think that I think that they're going to be distracted with all of the amazing flashy videos that'll be in their way before they stumble upon.
Yeah, I know. Just having one person play a video game and have their face be in the corner for a reaction.
Yeah.
And watching someone play for like 4 hours and subscribing, and yeah, the videos that make money. Man, we're not going to talk about that, right? We love you, YouTube.
Not this. Yeah.
Love you.
Not this episode, anyways.
And for those listening to Anchor, we love you too.
Yes, try.
We love you. Our first thing. This was first a podcast. It was all audio. It just became video because we thought you can kill two birds with one stone. Or in my case, you can cook 2 tofu blocks with 1 air fryer.
Nice.
But
I think it's a good place to end.
Yeah, so that's great. So definitely we're hoping that things go well. I mean, I don't know if we're hoping to go remote. We're great with hybrid right now.
Personally, I want to be remote for safety. I want to be in person for effectiveness.
Yeah.
And don't want to be hybrid for the workload.
Yeah. And I honestly, I play music every 2 days for the students. So every cohort gets to see me play in the hallway a different instrument. And I'm finishing up this week on bass. I've gone through so many different instruments already. The next few weeks, if I'm in school, are going to be classical guitar and Renaissance lute. But if not, it's going to be here, and I'm going to have to do something with the background or change some things around, but I'm going to try to do some different angles. And yeah, I want to do some interior design so I can make something look nice and have, start to use some better lighting and everything. But I think that's the biggest thing is we still want to get everything out to them, but we also want to be, here's 1,000 videos I made for you. I'm all excited that you watch them. And they're like, that's 1,000 videos. And you're like, oh yeah, I probably should have spaced them out. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, you don't want to post too many things.
They're busy.
How much can they take? How much can we take? Well, anyways, I'm Mr. James.
And I'm Mr. Richie.
And we are
the
educators. Stay alive, everybody.